Yo, what's up guys? C-Jax back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about how the Bloodline storyline is the only storyline that matters in WWE, right? And the reason this video is being made is because I was talking to one of my buddies, right? And we were talking about the fact that in WWE today, none of these storylines actually mean anything, right? They're absolutely meaningless and they carry no weight going forward. The Bloodline story is the only one that actually expands upon itself. It improves. It has layers of storytelling, and it actually gives us a genuine reason to tune in week to week, right? People are not tuning into SmackDown for Dr. Libation's Cody Rhodes, who's crying outside of his Wheatley bus, talking about some "I respect you, I love you. Some may call me a politician for this, but there's nothing political about it." Right? Like, what are you talking about, dude? You know what I'm saying? This guy's just talking. He's like a politician. It's just nonsense, right? No one's tuning in for that. We're tuning in for Roman Reigns, for the honorary Uso, Sami Zayn, you know what I'm saying? And the Bloodline with Jey Uso, who's massively over right now, and Jimmy Uso, right? It's just that simple. We're tuning in for the OG Bloodline and the new Bloodline because Solo is improving on the mic. He's showing more charisma, and Tama Tonga is actually starting to get over with the you know, and Jacob Fatu cut a pretty solid promo actually on SmackDown recently, right? So when it comes down to it, the Bloodline story is what pulls the millions of views. Yesterday I was like 14 hours after the video was uploaded, right? The reunion of the OG Bloodline in full this time had like 1.5 million views in 14 hours. Do you get what I'm saying? This is the only thing that draws these millions of masses of views consistently. It's that simple. I went on Instagram too, and it was like the video of the OG Bloodline reunion, right? The Instagram reel about it had at least like 3 million views and like a couple 100,000 likes within like a few hours of it happening on SmackDown. You get what I'm saying? This storyline is responsible for tens and millions of views coming to the product on a weekly basis. It's that simple. This is the storyline that drives people to go watch the show. This is the storyline that drives the mainstream appeal, and this is the storyline that most of the general audience of fan base that watches wrestling really cares about the most. And because of that, it is the most valuable storyline with right now the most valuable characters inside of the stories and inside of the company overall, right? It's really just that simple. You know, all this stuff contributes to anything associated with the Bloodline, along with us in anticipation for The Rock's eventual return. This is the stuff that matters. This is what has weight. This is what expands upon itself, and this is what actually has layers of storytelling. You have Roman still trying to, get out of his old ways of being arrogant and, selfish and things of that nature, and he has to realize he truly does need his family, and he has to let go of his past and walk into the future, you know what I'm saying? Let go of what was and walk into what is. Your boy C-Dex is dropping bars, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, this is just what we have to realize, right? So I figured I'd make this video and basically talk about how none of the other concurrent storylines in the WWE matter at all in comparison to the Bloodline, right? So let's talk about it. First, let's start at the head of the company, right? The quote-unquote North Star of the wrestling industry. I respect you. I have libations in my back pocket for you. You know what I'm saying? Cody Rhodes' championship reign has been garbage, right? It's awful. Nothing about this matters, and everyone knows it doesn't matter, right? Triple H now is just decided, look, Cody Rhodes, you can literally go in the ambulance with Randy Orton and get off the show. Like, it doesn't matter anymore. You're not going to wrestle, right? We know Cody Rhodes. I can't stop laughing at how nonsensical this is, because I was also talking to that same buddy I was talking about earlier. We were just sitting back, right? And we're like, none of these champions are wrestling. It really is sad. You know what I'm saying? Like, Gunther doesn't wrestle at all. He won the championship in August and has had, 3 matches since? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just embarrassing. It's like these guys average 1 match a month now. It's just so sad. Cody's had, 5 televised matches on SmackDown in 7 months since becoming champ. It's just, you get the point. It's embarrassing at this point, right? But Cody doesn't wrestle, and Triple H now at this point is comfortable with writing this dude off of TV because it's like, okay, if you're not going to wrestle, you're not going to cut any promos, and when you do cut promos, they're formulaic and garbage and boring and include things like Nick Bockwinkel and political about it, right? It's nonsense. And Cody Rhodes has not had one meaningful feud or meaningful match in his title reign, right? You look at the first match, the first feud, AJ Styles. Does anybody know where AJ Styles went after he lost at Clash at the Castle? No one knows because nobody cares. Then you had Cody Rhodes versus Logan Paul. It's like this match was a nothing match. I enjoyed this match, don't get me wrong, but it's like what weight does this carry past it actually happening? Nobody cares about this match. It was fun while it lasted for the 20 minutes it was on at King of the Ring, but nobody cares. Then you had the feud that happened, with a quote-unquote feud with Solo Sikoa, which was really just to lead into Roman Reigns returning in the main event of SummerSlam, right? So everything that Cody does is in service to the Bloodline. You know, you have the stuff with Cody and Roman at Bad Blood. It's like, this match had no implications on literally anything, right? And then you have Cody Rhodes doing the tag match at Money in the Bank, you know, pointless matches with Kevin Owens for the WWE Championship. It's like, dude, none of this matters. It's meaningless, it's boring, it's empty, and along the ride you get awful promos and awful segments and just this repetitive garbage. It really is sad at this point, and I honestly do feel bad for Cody Rhodes because he's an afterthought on SmackDown. When you turn on SmackDown now, you're like, okay, where's the Bloodline? Where's Roman? You know what I'm saying? Is Paul Heyman coming back? Is The Rock going to show up? These are the things you ask yourself. You don't ask yourself, are we going to learn about Nick Bockwinkel or politics on SmackDown? Right? Nobody cares about that garbage. So it's very unfortunate, right? Respect to Nick Bockwinkel, by the way, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I gotta give respect to the OGs, but come on now, man. We're not here for Nick Bockwinkel. We're here for the Bloodline. So, overall, Cody Rhodes' championship reign has been awful, right? So he's now an afterthought. The show opens with the Bloodline and it ends with the Bloodline now, and it's been that way since Roman came back, you know, full time over the last month and a half. It's just that Cody Rhodes as WWE champion is an afterthought. It's just facts. Now let's talk about the World Championship picture, right? Gunther has done nothing. It's as simple as that. We don't even need to waste time with this. Gunther has wrestled maybe, a few matches on TV, or a few matches in general, PLEs and TV, in the last 3 months. And he hasn't cut any meaningful promos or engaging segments, so what is he doing? He's had a couple decent moments on the mic, right, where it's like, oh, he'll say something funny, like the Goldberg situation or the Bret Hart thing, but outside of that, he hasn't done anything. He's not contributing promos, he's not contributing good promos, he's not contributing good matches because he's only wrestling like once a month or once every other month, so what is he doing? Right? The match versus Orton at Bash in Berlin, in my opinion, was overrated, mediocre, and boring. It was extremely boring. They took 10 minutes of the match was setting up an announce table. I'm like, what are we watching at this point, right? His match versus Sami on Raw was okay at best. And then his match versus Cody Rhodes at Crown Jewel, I mean, we already went over that. That match, in my opinion, was boring and it was mid and it was overrated. It wasn't garbage per se, but it was pretty boring and it wasn't exciting, right? So you have these matches, it's like, what is this dude contributing? And he has no feuds that are actually going to carry any weight long term. Because John Cena, when he comes back next year, for his last run, obviously, he's going to eventually win World Championship gold and get that 17th belt. And it's probably going to be Gunther's because Triple H is just a big Cody meat rider. So Cody it doesn't look like he's going to lose anytime soon unless The Rock steps in and overrides the plans and has him win the belt and fight Roman for it at Mania, right? That's just all that's going to happen. If not, Cody's just going to continue to hold the belt and just continue to have one of the most boring reigns ever. So Gunther, nothing he's doing has any implications. He hasn't had one good feud all year. He literally has not had one good feud literally all year. In 11 months, he's had no good feuds, no meaningful feuds, and no meaningful matches. And then after that, you have what? Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan is now associated with the New Judgment Day, which is easily an absolute garbage fest of it's garbage, right? The Judgment Day is a literal jobber fest. That's all it is. Carlito can barely wrestle and can barely move anymore. JD McDonough has barely been on TV. Finn Balor has barely been on TV. Damian Priest has barely been on TV. You know what I'm saying? Liv Morgan does not wrestle on TV really at all. I mean, I give her credit because she wrestles more than most of these other jobbers, right? But, I mean, at the end of the day, Liv Morgan herself is still going to be a jobber. Think about what's going to happen, right? I forgot to mention this with Gunther. When Gunther and Liv Morgan and Cody Rhodes lose their championships, what are they going to do next? Absolutely nothing. That's the answer to your question. Liv Morgan will go back to being an undercard jobber who's struggling to get over. And then you're going to also have Gunther will be struggling to get over in the mid-card division where he belongs. And Cody Rhodes will be doing nothing. Cody Rhodes on the outside chance, though, I think Cody would be an amazing United States champion. I think it fits his gimmick, and if he were to turn heel, that would be a good starting ground for him, would be to, be a U.S. champion, the American Nightmare gimmick as a bad guy. I think that would be fire, but it would also work with him being a face as well as the U.S. champion in the mid-card division, helping to do some work there. But outside of that, these guys are all going to be jobbers. The Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan storyline has gotten stale, it has gotten old, it has gotten washed. It is now in that Klay Thompson level, right? It's in the Mellow retirement tour level, because it's just garbage. Nobody wants to watch this anymore. It's boring. Rhea, Liv, I'm going to take my title back. The one thing I never lost, yeah. It's boring, right? Nobody cares about this. It's convenient that Rhea Ripley randomly got injured all of a sudden because now she's being written off TV so she can come back and win the title at Mania probably. But it's like, dude, the story was so boring that people were probably happy that the story was taking a big break because Rhea's taking time off. You get what I'm saying? The story's boring. Liv Morgan will be a jobber after she loses his belt, and quite frankly, nothing is engaging with her title reign, right? It's the same boring promos. The matches she's done have not been good because Liv Morgan is not that good in the ring, and it's just that simple. Then you look at the other storylines that are happening. Braun Breaker in the Intercontinental Championship picture, and I have a question for you guys. What even is the Intercontinental Championship picture anymore? What is it? Nobody knows anymore, right? Because Braun Breaker is barely showing up on TV because, again, this is the new style of wrestling, the quote-unquote new era. No one shows up. Your champions will not be on TV week to week. You don't even know if they're going to even be contributing if they are on the show, right? So it's just a whole entire embarrassing thing to really even talk about. Braun Breaker has so much talent and a great future ahead of him, but here's the problem with all of this. He has all this potential and these great tools, and he's not being utilized. He has been on Raw less than like the Wyatt Six the last few weeks, or like the Final Testament. And I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? In what world is the New Day on Raw more than Braun Breaker is? Braun Breaker's in his 20s, and he has a mid-card championship, but instead we've seen more of Xavier Woods and Kofi, who are headed, or they're already probably in their 40s at this point, still wrestling versus the War Raiders, right? It's stupid. Nothing makes any sense, but when these people are not showing up to work, you have no choice but to throw out these 40-year-olds and these 50-year-olds like Rey Mysterio and all these other people, right? It's sad at this point. But the Intercontinental Championship picture is null and void. Hopefully it can be Braun versus Sheamus or Braun versus Bronson Reed once he's done with Rollins or something like that to ignite this division again, ignite the men's mid-card division on Raw. But right now it looks barren because your Intercontinental Champion hasn't been on TV in like weeks at this point. So, it is what it is. The U.S. Championship, after LA Knight now has beaten Carmelo Hayes, he's beaten Andrade, and he's won the triple threat, Carmelo Hayes and Andrade are likely going to have to move on, right? There's nothing else for them to really do. If you just lost to the same dude like every week, you know what I'm saying? Game 7 got messed up. What even is the point of Melo and Andrade being in the same mix for the U.S. title anymore, right? They honestly, in my opinion, should team up and become a tag team. That's the way I see it. Just team up, make them a tag team, and have them fight the Street Profits for the world or for the tag team championships on an episode of SmackDown or on a PLE or something like that. Do something interesting, do something unique, do something engaging, right? It's that simple. Then let's look at the other stuff that happens. Well, first off, before I continue, or before I get to the next thing, LA Knight, we need to discuss the future of his U.S. Championship run. Because quite frankly, he's been doing awesome work as U.S. Champion, and me personally, I think he's ready for World Championship gold probably now, but he's probably not going to get a shot at that until next year. And when he gets that shot, I think it's time to put the world title on him because at this point, LA Knight's talent is through the roof. It just is. He cuts amazing promos week to week. He wrestles good matches. He has been botching that, that run-up suplex thing, but LA Knight's contributing in a great way, and he is a superstar right now, right? Obviously, in terms of draw and mainstream appeal, he's not a superstar, but in terms of wrestling, he is a superstar, and he needs to be rewarded with such. The U.S. title is beneath him. Give that to Carmelo Hayes, or give that to Montez Ford in a singles run or something like that. You know what I'm saying? That's what should happen. But, anyways, LA Knight, hopefully they find something next for him to do. I mean, outside of Andrade and Carmelo, I just don't know how many, valid, mid-carders there are on SmackDown in the men's division to fight LA Knight. But that's just the situation. Then on top of that, we have what next? The women's mid-card, right? Because we're probably going to get the Intercontinental Women's Championship probably tomorrow night on Raw to be announced. But the women's mid-card on both shows is garbage. It should be Naomi or Chelsea Green from SmackDown winning the women's U.S. title. And on Raw, I can't even tell you who's going to win that because I don't care, right? Just give it to Maxine Dupree or give it to some other jobber because every women's wrestler on Raw is an absolute jobber. So you have to do what you have to do, right? Then you have the other stuff that's happening, which is basically the undercard related stuff. The women's tag team division, nobody really cares about this. Nobody ever has. The men's tag team division, nobody cares about this. Again, nobody has in recent memory. Since the Usos dropped those tag belts, the tag belts have been absolutely nothing for a year and a half at this point. There's no prestige. But I'll tell you what, give the Street Profits the tag team championships on this upcoming episode of SmackDown. If they make the Street Profits champions, you will now restore order. You will have super talented guys who cut good promos and wrestle week to week and are entertaining, athletic, and have everything you need. They're on the younger side of the roster. They will probably give you a great reign and make those titles mean something if they're booked correctly, right? But if not, you're just going to have the Motor City Machine Guns who freaking raise your fist, and they get no pop. You know what I'm saying? Nobody cares about these dudes. They're jobbers. So we'll just see what happens with that, and that's the situation. But from top to bottom, your championship pictures are boring. CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, that feud was solid, but they're not even there anymore. Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed, that's a fun feud. I'm actually looking forward to seeing the continuation of that. But outside of that, there's nothing interesting happening on any of these shows. Right? So when you're talking about things that actually matter and things that carry weight, the only storyline that carries weight is the Bloodline story. Why is this? Because they're likely going to main event Survivor Series. The Bloodline, with members specifically like Roman and Rock, for example, are going to be main eventing your big PLEs next year, and it's just that simple. Cody Rhodes has lost his touch, right? Gunther has lost his touch. Liv Morgan lost her touch. LA Knight is great. Braun Breaker doesn't even show up on the show anymore, so what is there to say about that? And the tag team divisions, respectfully, are garbage, and so are the mid-card divisions, right? For the women's especially, obviously, with the women's US belt and probably the women's Intercontinental belt coming soon. In conclusion, the championship reigns right now are awful. The divisions are garbage, and quite frankly, no other story besides the Bloodline story, for reasons I've mentioned multiple times throughout the video, is the only story that matters. And by the time Survivor Series comes around, it's going to main event that, the 4v4 with the OG Bloodline versus the new Bloodline. When the Wise Man comes back, when The Rock comes back, things are going to get supremely interesting. So stay perked and stay excited, because the Bloodline is only going to go up from here, and honestly, I could see it climaxing, obviously, and then fully, having its conclusion at Mania 41 with Rock and Roman, and that will probably be the last, that's the last biggest thing that can really happen with the Bloodline at this point, right? I mean, what else can they really do? But, I mean, every time somebody says, what else can they do? They dig into the bag of tricks and do something different that's cool and ends up being pretty good. So, at the end of the day, the point of the video, like I said, the Bloodline is the only story that matters. It's the only story that generates mass amounts of revenue and mass amounts of eyeballs to the product. And if you disagree with that, there's two things you can do about it. Nothing and love it. So at the end of the day, I hope everyone has an absolutely phenomenal day. And as usual, peace out. One love.